Hi, my name's Melanie. I'm a tenant advocate at the Inner Sydney Tenants Advice and Advocacy Service, which is part of Redfern Legal Centre. There are 6 videos in this series. The first is an introduction to social housing law and policy. The second is applying for social housing. The third is appeals in social housing. The fourth is repairs in social housing. The fifth is rent and subsidies in social housing. And the final video is terminations in social housing. So, what is social housing? There are 3 types of housing that fall under the umbrella of social housing. The first is public housing. This is managed by the New South Wales Government. There are 2 government agencies responsible for public housing. The first is Land and Housing Corporation. It owns the properties. The second is Housing New South Wales. It is a part of the Department of Family and Community Services and it manages housing. The second kind of social housing is community housing. Community housing providers are non-profit, non-government agencies. They offer housing on different terms to the other housing providers. The third type of housing is Aboriginal housing. This kind of housing is only available to Aboriginal people. It is offered by the Aboriginal Housing Organisation or other Aboriginal community organisations. 2 phrases we'll be using in these videos are law and policy. Some rights and responsibilities are governed by law. Some are governed by policy, and some are governed by both. What do we mean when we say law and policy? Law means legislation, an act of Parliament. Policy means the practices of various housing providers. Each housing provider has their own policies, and these can vary considerably between housing providers. In social housing, the main law is the Residential Tenancy Act. The Act applies to both social housing and private tenancies. It sets out a range of rights and responsibilities, such as when a housing provider can have access to the property, who is responsible for repairs and maintenance, what happens when a tenant falls behind in their rent, and terminating a tenancy. Some things governed by social housing policies are eligibility for housing assistance, the types of property and number of offers a tenant is eligible for, how subsidies are calculated, and transferring from one social housing property to another. In the next video, we will be talking about applying for social housing.